All right, today we're jumping into a really fascinating, and you could say bold, blueprint for a renewed political system in Germany. Now, the whole thing is built around one single powerful idea, a mandatory creed for every single public servant. The goal? To anchor governance in a shared set of ethical principles. So, let's take a look at what that actually means.
So just think about this for a second. What if holding public office wasn't just about debating policy or playing politics? What if it required a deep personal commitment? That's really the core question this blueprint is asking. What happens when a personal vow of faith becomes, well, a job requirement for public service?
And let's be clear, the model we're looking at today isn't some small adjustment to the current system. No, this is a total reimagining. It places a personal creed right at the very heart of public office. The idea is to create a direct, unbreakable link between what an individual believes and how they act in their public role.
Okay, Section 1, the framework. Before we even get into the words of the creed itself, the proposal lays out some pretty strict rules that would govern anyone holding public office.
So the whole process is laid out in 4 very clear steps. First up, eligibility. It's tied directly to a sincere belief in God. Simple as that. Step 2, you have to publicly recite the creed when you take office. Then, to reinforce that commitment, every single day of business begins with a collective prayer. And here's the kicker. Step 4, the consequences. If you don't comply, you get 1 warning. After that, you're removed from office, and there's no veto, no appeal. This system is designed for absolute, unwavering commitment.
All right, Section 2, the creed's core beliefs. Now that we've seen the rules, let's dive into the philosophical heart of the creed, what it's actually built on. So, the creed kicks off with its most fundamental statement. It's a clear, unambiguous profession of faith in a creator God. This first line really is the bedrock for everything that follows. It establishes a worldview where divine creation and the inherent value of humanity are front and center.
Next up, the creed introduces a pretty unique concept, something it calls the Christ impulse. Now, the way this model defines it is not as a strictly religious doctrine for one faith. Instead, it's described as a universal power. It's presented as this force for love, mercy, and forgiveness that it argues is actually compatible with any world religion. The aim here is to set a kind of universal ethical standard.
And that brings us right to the second core belief. This is where the creed shifts from just personal faith to a much broader cultural declaration. It positions this Christ impulse as the essential cornerstone for the entire society's values and ethics.
So what does that actually mean in practice? Well, the creed breaks it down into 3 key calls to action. First, you have the universal virtues, love, mercy, and forgiveness. Second, a deep respect for the value of every single human life, and it places a special emphasis on the unborn. And third, a respect for what it describes as the natural order of man and woman.
Okay, on to Section 3. Pledges in action. This is where we see how those core beliefs get translated into the specific duties and real, tangible promises of a public servant.
And this right here is a real turning point in the text. The word pledge is so important because it signals a shift from simply stating a belief to making a binding commitment. It's like a direct contract between the public servant and the state. This slide really highlights the balance the creed is trying to strike. On one hand, you've got this strong commitment to protecting individual dignity for everyone. But on the other hand, there's an equally strong commitment to upholding marriage and the family as a fundamental pillar of society. The proposal doesn't see these as being in conflict. It views them as 2 sides of the same coin, totally complementary. The next pledge brings in the principle of charity. And we're not just talking about giving money here. It's presented as this all-encompassing spirit that should guide every action and every interaction. It's really about the how of governing.
So within this creed, charity is defined as a really active moral stance. It means you have to constantly strive for justice, kindness, and truth. It means treating every single person with respect. And, crucially, it means actively opposing any ideology based on hate or malice. It's meant to be a moral compass for every single decision a person makes.
All right, Section 4 is about civic commitment. This is where the creed connects all these personal vows to the public servant's
bigger responsibilities to the Constitution and to the nation itself.
Here, the public servant vows loyalty not just to a piece of paper, but to the Constitution's immutable principles. This suggests that the Constitution is seen as something more than just a set of laws. It's a vessel for timeless core values.
And what are those principles? Well, the Creed is very specific. They are rooted in a Christian appreciation of the human being. The pledge is to defend these principles with everything you've got, to the best of your knowledge and belief. It's a call for a total, conscious commitment.
And now we get to the final official pledge. This one is a direct, almost emotional profession of love for the nation. It frames patriotism not just as a duty, but as, well, an affair of the heart. This love for the homeland is defined in 3 specific ways. First, seeing the nation as a trust from God. Second, honoring its entire heritage, the history, the culture, the values. And third, actively working to make sure it has a prosperous and healthy future.
And that brings us to our final section, number 5, the Coda. The Creed doesn't end with a public pledge. It concludes with a final, deeply personal vow that ties everything right back to the individual.
This final statement really brings everything together in one personal commitment. It's about consciously choosing to be a good person, to always strive to develop virtues, and to actively put good out into the world. The Creed is basically suggesting that truly effective public service has to start with the private, personal work of becoming a better human being.
And that's where we'll close our explainer for today. This proposed creed for governance fundamentally tries to fuse private belief with public responsibility, arguing that you just can't separate the two. And it leaves us with a really profound question to think about. In any system of government, where should we draw the line between the private conscience of an individual and the public duties of the office they hold? Something to consider. Thanks for joining me.